Hi there. Welcome to Bourbon Turntable. This is the show that blends a love of music with a love of whiskey. Tonight, I have a dear old friend joining me. She's not old, but we've been friends for a while. That's what I mean. She's quite youthful. Um, Stephanie McNew is with me. Hi, Stephanie.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and I'm glad that we're able to make this happen. I really appreciate and respect all the things that you do in terms of the way you've been faithful and committed to ABV Network and made that such a great experience for everybody involved there. And then you're branching out on your own and doing your own podcast and writing a couple of books. And we'll talk about all of that in just a minute, as well as having some cocktails that you've featured on your podcast. And so this is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to talk about cocktails. We're going to talk about um, ghosts. We're going to talk about books. We're going to talk about murder ballads. We got a lot of fun things to cover. And I know that I'll enjoy it, and I hope everybody listening does too. Before we get to all that, I want to tell you about the Bar Cart Co-op. The Bar Cart Co-op is a collection of friends who produce content for the whiskey enthusiast. We have shows like Distillers Talk with Alan Bishop and Christy Atkinson. By the way, as we're recording this, it is Alan and Kim's anniversary, so happy anniversary
Happy anniversary.
today. Yeah, so happy anniversary. If there's ever a pair that was meant for each other, it's the two of them. But on Distillers Talk, Alan and Christy talk with distillers from across the country and around the world about anything and everything in distillation. Alan also has a show called One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute. If you are a distiller, whether you're a distiller in your backyard, staying one step ahead of the law, or if you are a distiller for your career, you can pose questions to Alan and he'll post video responses to those questions. And Alan has just way too much time on his hands. So he also has a show called If You Have Ghosts, You Have Everything, who Stephanie McNew has been a guest on a couple of times, I believe.
Yep, we collaborate almost every October. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, and he even had me on. So I don't know. He must have been really desperate for content that week, but it's a really fun show. Gets into supernatural, spiritual, uh, you know, UFOs, Bigfoot, monsters, ghosts, all kinds of really cool stuff. Speaking of cool stuff, we got our buddies over at My Whiskey Den, Pat and Mike and Mitch, every Monday night, live, 9 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Central. My Whiskey Den is where craft whiskey is king. So check that out. And finally, we have David Levine and Whiskey in My Wedding Ring podcast. David does some great interviews with distillers. He has a blog where he posts reviews that are spot on. If I'm in a store and I see something that I'm interested in but I just don't know, one of the first things I'll do is I'll go to David's website and search to see if he's got a review of it. And if he does and it's a good review, I may go ahead and pull the trigger. But if there's one there and he says, nah, this isn't that great, I just put it back and move on. So David's really good, great resource and a really fun guy. So Stephanie, welcome to Bourbon Turntable.
Yeah, thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So let's dive right in, okay? Because we're 3.5 minutes into the show and we haven't had anything to drink yet. So we'll kind of use this as a launching pad into you talking about some of your background and then talking about your podcast specifically. But we are drinking a cocktail that you featured recently on one of your shows called the Al Capone. So tell us a little about this.
So, the Al Capone, obviously named for the man himself. I think one of the greatest bootleggers we've ever known in this country. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he did get caught, but it was for tax purposes, not for bootlegging. So,
Yeah, I liked how you said on your podcast, if you're going to be a criminal, commit one crime at a
yeah,
time.
I mean, I'm not encouraging anybody to be a criminal, but like I said, like if you're speeding, don't have anything else in the car with you. One crime at a time, guys. You can't stack those. But yeah, so the Al Capone cocktail, I love that it was a rye cocktail, and this was created by a man named John Bush out of Brooklyn. He was a bartender there, and it's a little bit of a take on the Negroni. So I had mine ready to go, Kevin. Did you have yours?
I do. I do.
Perfect. So cheers.
Cheers.
And I really do like these. I think
Yep.
they're quite enjoyable. It's a heavy one though. Like there's 3 ounces of rye in it. So like maybe it's like a during dinner drink. You want to drink this one over a while.
Well, it I didn't get enough orange zest in mine.
Yeah.
I
So
think
um
I think that makes a huge difference.
it does. So I made one of these a couple weeks ago, and I think I said it on my show originally. I didn't
Hmm.
have oranges, so I was like, I'll just throw in some orange bitters. I ruined it. It was so bad. But yeah, the orange zest does make a lot of difference. Make sure
Yep.
you do that correctly. But yeah.
Yeah. So while we're sipping on the Al Capone cocktail, let's just start. Tell people a little about your background in the whiskey world and how you got involved with whiskey podcasts and such.
Yeah, so I was a whiskey fan, just a fan, just somebody that like enjoyed drinking it. I liked going to tastings, I liked going to distilleries. It was a hobby, right? I think we all start as it was a fun hobby, or maybe we're just like, hey, I drink a lot. Let's make this a fun hobby. so we Chris and I did the Bourbon Trail together in 2017, back when you could do it in a weekend, like a
Hmm.
long weekend. You can't do that anymore, and
No.
we really need to go back and add on to the things we haven't done yet. But we went and got the passport and the t-shirt. It was so fun. I posted all that to Instagram. Like my Instagram was nothing at that time. It's still not a lot, but like I would just post random stuff that I was doing on there. And then Steve found me from the ABV Network. He was like, "You want
Hmm.
to come on the Bourbon Daily?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely." I didn't even know what a podcast was. I was like, "Yeah, I'll come on." And then he called me later. He was like, "You were great. Do you want to be my co-host?" And that was 6 years ago. And I joked that that's the longest job I've ever
Wow.
had.
6 years. That's
6 years.
amazing.
It is. And then from there, like, we created more things there. And then I was kind of like, I'm also a certified bourbon steward. If you go to Moonshine University, you can do
Hmm.
it in person and become one there, or you can do the book. I did the book one. I really need to go in person. So from podcasts to events, everything else. And then I was like, I want to talk about weird stuff. I want to talk about ghosts and murderers and all kinds of other things. So then I started Highly Spirited Podcast, which is more cocktail focused than whiskey focused.
Hmm.
But with the cocktails, I wanted to know where they came from, who invented them, because there's some interesting ones out there. And I say interesting in a good way and also a bad way, because I want to be like, who came up with this?
Right.
Where did it originate from? So
Right.
I've had just fun looking into the history of cocktails too on that show.
Yeah. And you were involved some with the cocktail contest when we had that with
Yes,
ABV.
yep.
Yeah.
You were a great competitor in all of those. And
That was so much fun.
it was. And that kind of like stemmed my interest more in cocktails because you and Adina and Dave and Kevin Majors were making all kinds, and Vicky were making all kinds of creative things. So I'm like, all of these things we're drinking at a bar came from somewhere. Who made these?
Hmm.
So, maybe in 20 years I'll be talking about Adina. I'll be like, Adina Ewald's made
Yes.
this for a competition.
Well, I don't think you have to wait 20 years. I think
No,
you
I don't either.
I think it's there because she makes some really
She
incredible
does.
things. She won the contest with the
Yeah, Bourbon Women,
Bourbon
right?
Women.
Yep.
Yeah, and I got to sample that cocktail, and man, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Which is no
Even
surprise to anybody.
looking at the photos of her cocktails, I'm like, I want 5 of those. Like, I
Yeah,
just
really.
know they're fantastic.
Hmm. So, um, when you start, how long have you been doing the Holly Spirited podcast then?
I think I started that in 2022,
Okay.
spring of that year. It came late. Yeah. I think spring of 2022, I started that. And at that time, it was only a bi-weekly show.
Hmm.
Because I was like, I don't think I can do a weekly show. And then it just escalated into becoming a weekly show. So, yeah, a few
Yeah.
years now, which is
Yeah.
wild. It's gone quick.
Now, have you repeated any cocktails at this point?
I have not.
Wow, that's pretty
I
impressive.
there have been weeks where I was on vacation or on a trip and I've just replayed old shows,
Sure,
but I've never repeated a cocktail yet.
that's very good because
It,
I mean that's a lot of content.
it
All right,
is. In
and
2 years, 52 weeks, it's at least 100 some cocktails that I've
yeah,
talked about at that
yeah.
time.
But tonight we've got two that I'd not heard of or had before.
Yeah.
Before I've heard about them on your show.
Yeah. So, and the
Yeah.
way that comes about, so I will either have in mind like a ghost story or something weird I want to
Hmm.
talk about and be like, all right, that took place in Massachusetts. I need a cocktail from
Mhm.
Massachusetts, or vice versa. I'll be like, that cocktail sounds interesting. Oh, it's from Colorado, then I need a Colorado Ghost. Like, I try to pair them together from where they're from, and it can go either way.
Yeah. So since you've been doing this, um, well, let me ask you this: before you started your podcast, what was your favorite cocktail?
Always been a big fan of old fashions.
Mhm.
Still a big fan of old fashions. If we go to dinner, that's most likely what I'm getting.
Mhm.
If it's a good restaurant.
Right.
Yeah,
Um, because you old fashioned's very versatile.
it is.
You
And
can
there's some not great ones out there.
there yes, there are some very not great ones. Okay, this is high C with some
Yeah.
vodka in it or something.
When it
This is
doesn't
terrible.
even look like whiskey and it's like red, and I'm like, what did you put in that? Like, you already
Yes.
know it's not going to be a good time.
It's
But
it's Hawaiian punch is what it
yeah,
is.
exactly.
But you can do bourbon, rye, brandy,
Yep.
uh, about anything you want. Uh, tequila, So,
Yeah.
um, so is there you like say old fashioned has been your
That's
go
usually
to?
my go-to. I really do enjoy a margarita, but it's got to
Hmm.
be, if there's sour mix in it, I absolutely want nothing to do with that.
Right,
It has to be like a fresh lime juice, fresh
right,
margarita. They're so nice when they're done correctly.
yeah. Uh, on the old fashioned, what do you prefer? Bourbon, rye?
I do like bourbon. I
Yeah.
want it to be classic bourbon, old fashioned.
Okay. So that was your favorite before the podcast.
Yeah.
Is there something that you've tried that you didn't know about before that is, well, this may be my favorite now, or at least a close second?
That is a really, really good question. I think it's an old cocktail. It's called their Corpse Reviver number 2, and it's
Hmm.
made with absinthe. I cannot make them correctly at home. So when
Hmm.
I see it on a cocktail menu at a bar, like
Hmm.
a cocktail bar, somebody that's going to do it right, I'm going to order one of those just because I've never created one that's good. So
Yeah.
I want one that's good. But I think those are just fun to order because they're so
Yeah.
different.
I think I remember hearing you talk about that on that episode. So
Yeah.
that that was very interesting, and it's a great name.
It
Yeah.
is. And it was made to be a morning drink. It was made to be like a hangover cure.
Well, I,
The
I
corpse
don't know.
reviver.
I don't know that absinthe is a hangover cure. When I drink absinthe, I have weird dreams. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so, so again, Holly Spirited Podcast. This is available where?
Um, Apple, Spotify. I'd appreciate it if you did it on Spotify because that's where I look at my numbers at.
Okay.
Really, anywhere you stream podcasts, you should be able to find it.
Okay. Um, I listen to it on Apple, so I'll switch to Spotify.
No, Apple's fine too. I look at that. I just look at Spotify more because I use their program, but Apple's
Mhm.
also great. Keep
Okay.
listen to it wherever you want
Uh,
to listen to it.
so, it was there a? I'll kind of ask the same thing along the ghost storyline.
Yeah.
What was your before you started the podcast? What was your favorite ghost story?
Ooh, so there's a story. I want to make sure I get her name right. Hold on. You would ask me
Sure.
that. I don't have it on the tip of my tongue. So,
I
it was,
ask, way out silly
yeah.
questions while
And
we're
when it's your
drinking.
favorite, you should know this. But she has a weird name. So hold on.
Yeah, trying to remember things when you're drinking a
Yeah.
cocktail with 3 ounces of rye in it is not necessarily a great idea.
Yeah. No. And so what was her name? Hester Zona Shu. She went by Zona. She
Zona.
was married by her. She was killed by her husband, and then she came back to haunt her mother in her dreams. And the court actually let her mother testify that my daughter said her husband killed her in my dreams. And it was out of, I think, Virginia maybe, and it was from the 1800s. So yeah, she was the
Mhm.
first ghost to solve her own murder, and in her hometown, there's a plaque memorizing her. Yeah.
The first ghost to solve her own murder.
Yeah,
Okay.
she's known as the Greenbrier Ghost, and I'm sorry, it's West Virginia, not Virginia.
Yeah.
But yeah, Hester Zona Shu
Okay.
solved her own murder.
So
And
is that relate if it's from West Virginia and it's the Greenbrier, is it associated with the Greenbrier Hotel? Do you remember that?
it's not, which
Okay.
is, I think that's just kind of a thing in their area. They call everything Greenbrier for
Yeah.
some. but yeah, not associated
Yeah.
with the hotel.
We stayed at the Greenbrier a few years ago, and I seem to remember that there's some, you know, a hotel that old, it's got some ghost stories to it,
Yeah,
but,
they don't they all? So
yes.
every episode I do, I'm like, yet again, another hotel. They all have something.
So, since you've been doing the show, though, is there a story that you've come across that you really, really love, and is something that you had a lot of fun researching and telling us about?
So actually I really enjoy doing Gettysburg. So I'm not really
Hmm.
big, like I love history, but I'm not big into the war history. But Gettysburg is fascinating, and I would love to take just a weekend trip out there sometime because every single place of that, every single thing there seems haunted or has something spiritual going
Mhm.
on. And like people will still take photographs and be like, there's a weird shadow figure. I'm like, definitely a ghost. So Gettysburg, I feel like every inch of that place is haunted, and I'm fascinated by them right now.
Yeah. Um, we went to, Colonial Williamsburg. This is a long time
Mhm.
ago,
Yeah,
but, did a ghost tour there, and those things are, they're fun, but it's a lot
right.
of times it's just more obscure history than it is anything else. But they had some interesting ghost stories to tell about that, and a town that is that old,
Right.
there's bound to be some witches and ghosts stories that are floating around. So
Yeah. So one of my favorites, you may know, speaking of witches, is the Louisville Witches Tree. Are you familiar with that?
I am not.
Okay, so there is a tree in Louisville. It's near one of your parks in old Louisville.
Hmm.
So in the 1800s, these witches used to just like it was kind of like a ceremony tree. They would go like practice their magic there, whatever. So the city said, we need a maypole. Like they wanted to build a new one. They're like, we'll cut down this tree and make a maypole. And the witches says, please don't do that. That's our tree. Don't cut
Hmm.
down our tree. And then the city decided, nope, we're going to do it anyways. And then the witches said, well, bad things are going to happen. We're going to destroy your town if you do this. 2 weeks later, a tornado came through and ripped out Louisville. So you know, don't mess with this. And that tree grew back. It shouldn't have grew back, but now it has all these knots and all kinds of crazy things coming out of it. And people go decorate it. We went last summer. We threw some coins and beads at it. It's all kinds of decorated.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know that. I'll figure
It's
that where that is.
which
Uh,
park? It's Central Park in Old Louisville.
okay. All
So
right.
it's you will see it immediately. Like it's just this. It has these. It's huge. There's these knots, and it's very decorated. You'll know which one it is when you'll see it from a distance.
You're not going to confuse it with another tree. So,
No.
uh, um, so, so you're still doing work with ABV,
Yep.
right?
Still co-host of the Bourbon Daily, and
Yep.
we're doing some new events and all kinds of fun stuff over
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
It's really just a lot to keep up with. So it's like get the newsletter because sometimes I'm like, oh, I didn't even know.
So you're still working with Steve and,
Yeah.
and the gang over at ABV. That's great.
Yep. Having a
And
blast. Yeah.
yeah, got your podcast going.
Mhm.
Um, and you've written two books.
Yeah, so I wrote two cocktail books last year.
Yeah.
One was pairing cocktails with your zodiac sign because I think cocktails have a personality, right? Like a whiskey cocktail is very different than a tequila cocktail. And then your zodiac signs, if you're into that, like, a Libra acts different than a Cancer does. So I paired everybody with their own cocktail. So
Okay.
there's a little bit of blurb about the sign and then the cocktail recipe. And I think it's
Hmm.
just fun to get together with friends and be like, oh, this is yours. Let's make that. And I think it's
No,
fun.
no, it's a neat idea, and I've heard you talking about how, yeah, if you're having a dinner party and hey,
Hmm.
what's your sign? Okay, you're a Capricorn, and
Yep.
here's
Here's
your
your,
drink.
yeah.
Yeah. So what is yours?
I'm a Cancer, so mine was a gin gimlet, and I'm not a big fan of gin, but
Yeah.
it kind of just made sense. So like it's classic. Cancers are like really homey and classic, and you just can't go wrong with it. So,
Yeah.
Capricorns were Manhattans, by the way. Like Capricorns are known to be like serious and like businessmen, and I'm like
Hmm.
every businessman's going to order a Manhattan. It's perfect.
All right, and then you wrote another book.
Yes. Monster mixology. And this was fun. I put a lot of research into this book because I took folklore and monster stories,
Hmm.
everything from like Dracula to cryptids, and paired cocktails with them. And I think everybody got like two or three different
Hmm.
cocktails. So there's a lot
Yeah.
in that.
So as far as in either book, in either case, you're pairing cocktails with something, are you deciding, hey, this is what that pairing needed to be, or uh, how did you
I
come up with
did.
that?
So like the cocktails are not all original. They're cocktails that I found like either
Sure.
in books or the internet, and I'm like, oh, that really goes good with the vampire. That goes good with the Jersey Devil. So I did all the pairings myself.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, let's make sure that, and we'll get into some other stuff here in just a couple minutes, but I want to make sure that everybody knows where they can find you and everything you've got going on, because you got a lot going on. So
I do.
take it away.
Yeah, so if you want to find my podcast, the easiest place is on Instagram at Highly Spirited Podcast. There's like a link thing. You can click that link. It'll take you to where you can listen to the podcast. It'll take you to Amazon to buy my books. I'm also doing a Substack, but we'll get into that in a minute, where I write blogs about murder ballads. So everything you can get from a link on that Instagram. So definitely check that out first. It'll help you find everything.
That's all really, really cool. And yeah, I'm proud of you for what you're doing with
No,
that
thank
stuff,
you.
because
And I didn't
it's
notice that I
hard
had
work.
such a color scheme. Everything is purple and green. I didn't notice that.
Well, when I was trying to figure out, okay, what do I
Yeah,
make on here, I'm looking at it. Okay, there's purple in all of this, so okay, there we go.
yeah. I that was very unintentional. I really
Yep,
do like purple.
yep. Okay, but do you like Prince?
Yeah, I do.
Well, of
I do.
course.
I mean,
Everybody likes Prince.
you gotta like Friends. Yeah.
Everybody likes Prince. All right. So let's kind of switch gears a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit about music. And to do that, we will introduce another cocktail, the
Yes.
American Pie.
The American Pie. And I it's supposed to be served in a martini glass. I hate martini glasses. There's like a 90%
Yeah.
chance I will spill this on myself. They're awkward to drink out of.
Yes, they are. And
I find
so
those enjoyable.
so how did you come up with this cocktail for the show that you had it on?
Yeah, so this I did a show. So this year I started I didn't want to just do ghost stories anymore. I wanted to add like in some true crime or like some celebrity stuff. And but I
Hmm.
didn't want to do recent stories where it would still affect families or whatever, right? I don't want to be
Right.
like, "Oh, your sister died last week. Let's talk about it." I don't want to do that
Right.
to people. So I was like celebrity deaths. I'm obsessed with old Hollywood. I wanted to talk to about that, but I ended up talking about musicians as well. So I did a show in February about the day the music died, the Buddy
Right.
Holly plane crash, the Big Bopper. And then I found a cocktail called the American Pie. Nothing to do with that song by Don McLean, but I'm like, ties in well enough. Let's do
Right.
it. So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. So this is a bourbon cocktail,
yeah.
lots of fruit flavors in it.
It's a very fruity one. And like I made this in February and I'm like, it's a better summer cocktail, I think. Like maybe for your 4th of July party, it would probably
Yeah.
be really good. But
Cheers.
cheers.
Yeah, a lot of fruit. A lot of fruit.
It is.
Yep.
It's a big difference going from the Capone to this one.
Yes, it
It's
is.
like a world of different. I
It
mean,
is.
cocktails, but very, very different.
Yeah, this is very sweet. You could do like a slushy out of this.
Oh, that's actually a good idea.
See.
It would be delicious.
Yeah.
Even better for
Okay.
your 4th of July party.
Absolutely. No, that the American Pie, 4th of July. I think we're on to something,
I think,
Stephanie.
yeah, I think we
I
got
think
it.
we're on to something. So the one part of your show is dealing with murder ballads, and so I want to get into that in a minute. But I want to talk a little bit about just your background with music and how you came to love what you love about it. Do you happen to remember the first concert that you ever went to?
I do. I was in 7th grade and I went with my
Yeah.
best friend and her cousin. So her cousin was maybe a senior that year, probably not the best person to send 7th graders with, but it was Brooks and Dunn and Big and Rich when they were touring together.
Okay.
Yeah, country
All right.
concert.
That
It
is
was
very
awesome.
country. Were
Yeah.
you wearing cowboy boots and cut off jean shorts?
I don't even remember.
Yeah.
Probably definitely the cutoff jeans, but I think it was like flip flops were all we wore
Oh,
junior high and high school. So, and it
well,
was one of those outdoor venues. Like it was probably called Verizon then. Now it's Ruoff Home Mortgage. It's one of those
yeah,
outdoor theaters, is where
yeah,
it was.
yeah. Well, there's a uniform you have to wear to country music concerts like
There
that.
is,
So
yeah. So it's usually like cut off denim shorts or
yeah.
sundress and boots, or you
Mhm.
can get away with flip flops sometimes.
Okay. Do you remember the first album you ever bought?
Oh God. I don't think, I mean, I didn't buy it, but Spice Girls were huge. And I
Mm.
got the Spice Girls Spice World for my 8th birthday. I remember unwrapping that and I was like, it was a little CD and it had the pull out thing. You know how CDs used to like
Yes.
lyrics and everything?
Yeah,
Oh,
it'd stretch out like
yep,
a
stretch it
CVS
out.
receipt. Yep.
Yes, it was Spice World. I was so excited about it.
And how old were you then?
8,
12?
that's it.
8. 8. Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yep.
I
Still
sure, I
remember. And
get
I
that.
got all the Spice Girl Barbies. It was like Spice Girl everything for that day.
Um, so what's been more uh, I guess, enduring for you? Has it been the Brooks and Dunn side of things or the Spice Girls side of
Yeah,
things?
it's definitely the country side of things,
Hmm.
and not necessarily Brooks and Dunn. I wouldn't say like they're like the classic 90s country, right?
Yep.
It's still like 90s country, but I think that was the intro to like the pop country and the bro country that I
Yep.
can't stand.
Yep.
So I really like the more folksy Americana, like the stuff my grandpa used to listen to. Like he liked a
Mhm.
lot of bluegrass and like some, I don't know, like folksy music. I prefer that over the pop country.
Yes. Uh, Pop country sucks. It just
It
does.
does. Or like even like Red Dirt Texas country, I love like
Yep.
Turnpike and all those guys. Coast Canada. I listen to a lot of that.
Yep. Um, what's the last concert you went to?
We have not been anywhere for a concert this year. Last year it was Co Wetzel. So
Okay.
he's not even really in a genre. Co is just Co, and
Right.
every time he's around, I'm like, I'm gonna go see that man. Like, every time.
Well, you've got some really good, you just live music venues around Indianapolis.
We do. The Hi-Fi downtown is absolutely excellent.
Hmm.
The Vogue still gets some good acts,
Yep.
and yeah, Indianapolis has great live music.
Yep. I went to the Jazz Kitchen a few months ago.
Yeah,
Saw
that
them.
place is cute. Yeah.
It's a really cool place.
Yep.
Great vibe to it. It's very laid back. And I saw a guitarist there named Tommy Baldwin, and he was just incredible.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of cool places to see music there
There is.
that you're not having to pay $50 to $100 for a ticket, and then $30 to $60 for Ticketmaster fees.
Oh
You
my god.
just
That's one of those things like I will fight against any day of the week where I'm just like, I bought two $30 tickets. Why is it $90?
right.
All the
It's a
time.
gigantic ripoff.
Frustrating.
Gigantic ripoff. So it, uh, when a lot of times when I'm listening to music, I'm drinking whiskey.
Yes.
Are you the same way? I mean, because you've got a brand new deck that your husband just
Yeah.
finished for you. So have you christened that deck by sitting out there with a bottle of whiskey and some of your favorite
We
country music?
did. So we actually ended up having a Memorial Day party with all of our neighbors and our friends.
Great.
And yeah, so we're like, bring a speaker, let's have like some whiskey and drink and listen to music. It was a really good time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because that's what decks are for.
That is exactly what
um, so what? How did you gain an infatuation with murder ballads?
So I've always liked weird, dark stuff, right? Like I was allowed to watch horror movies before anybody should have been allowed to. I was like 10 years old being like, Children of the Corn, greatest movie ever. No. But I like music that tells a story, right? That's why
Hmm.
I'm not like all like, oh, I hate pop country, like trucks and beers and girls. That doesn't tell a story. Like I like the older stuff where I'm like, oh, I was coming home from this thing, and then my friend said my wife's cheating on me, and then I murdered her. Like
Yes.
I like you gotta have a story. I want
Yes.
something to tell me a story where it's almost like it paints the picture where it's like cinematic in my head, where I'm like, oh, I just played a whole movie in my head because of that song. Like
Yes.
I love that. That's what I want
I,
to hear.
I love it when a songwriter can use one phrase
Hmm.
and it puts the picture in your mind completely.
Exactly.
It's not, it would take a page and a half to fully describe it, but in one phrase, it's
Yeah.
there, and
Like
you've
two
got.
lines of lyrics, you're like, oh, it just what?
I
Yeah,
got it.
it's
I got it.
amazing that they can do that.
Yeah, it's an incredible talent. Um, So we talked a little bit before the show about, you gave me three murder ballads that you really liked.
Yeah.
The first was Knoxville Girl by the Louvin Brothers.
Yeah. Are you familiar with that one at all? It is.
Yes.
Okay, so it's very old, and I think that is like the original murder ballad.
Yeah.
Not necessarily their version, but it's been redone since the 1600s.
Right, because
Which
it goes back to England.
it
Uh,
does. And it was originally called the Wexford Girl, then it was the Oxford Girl. And like as it traveled like through regions, the name would change.
right,
And then it ended up over here in the States, and now it's the Knoxville Girl, but the
right,
same story overall.
yeah, uh, yeah. Just killed my girl.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it was based on a true story originally.
Mhm.
So one of its former names was the Cruel Miller. So a miller's apprentice, like a guy that worked in a mill,
Right,
was seeing this girl, got her pregnant. You had to marry her. That was like your only choice back then. Didn't want to do that, so he drowned her in a river instead. But got caught and he actually ended up being hanged for that. So it was a real true crime murder ballad.
um, yeah, and so the whole murder ballad thing does have a very, very deep history. It's
It
not
does.
just some of the sad country songs that you hear
Right. Yeah.
today.
And I think that's the difference, because like people do like to make fun of country music, to be like, oh, you lost your truck and your girl and your dog
Right,
on the same day. Like, there's so much more to it than that. And you got to listen to like a really good murder ballad to be like, oh, there's a whole story here. There's some history here. It's not just superficial crying in my beer song.
right,
Yeah.
right. Um, Another one you named was the night the lights went out in Georgia.
Yes. So originally by Vicki Lawrence, I
Hmm.
spent most of my life thinking this was a Reba original. It's
Hmm.
not, but she did make it famous in the 90s. So,
Yep.
it's a Reba song. I think Reba owns that song. But yeah, a good
Yeah.
story. So it starts with this guy. He's like, I was out of town, came home, stopped at the bar. My best friend's there. He's like, I can't wait to go home and see my girl. He's like, yeah, you might not want to do that. And then he goes in to be like, hey, she's been having an affair. Don't go kill him because I did it too. Like, that's a bad day.
Yeah.
Like, it just sets the tone of the whole song where you know some shit is going to go down. But, and then
Uh,
that one's one I would like to see like as a movie. I would watch this because there's a twist at the end where he's not the murderer. His sister was. His sister killed the guy and his wife. So,
I thought that was a movie. Yeah.
was it? Oh,
Yes.
I got to go. I'm going to
Yeah.
stream later. I didn't know it was.
1981. Hang on. Starring Christy McNichol,
Okay.
Dennis Quaid, and
Oh.
Luke Skywalker.
I had no idea that
Yep.
existed already.
Yeah. So there you go.
Oh, where can
My
I see
my guess is it could really do with a retelling.
yeah, I just saw that Rotten Tomatoes at 75%.
Ah,
So
that's actually
it's
better than
actually
I thought
not
it would.
bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and then another Garth Brooks song.
Yeah. So this song was so fun and upbeat, and it came out when I was literally a toddler. So like imagine a kid in the back seat just
Mhm.
singing along to this, no
Yeah.
idea.
Right.
And it's another song. There's a lot of infidelity. It ends in murder, which I think in this one it was a crime of passion. He drove his truck through the motel. Like it tells
Right.
a story. It's good.
Yeah. Um, and yeah, you're right. It sounds very upbeat. And oh, this is a
Yeah.
catchy, happy tune.
Yep.
Wait,
And it's
what?
like, oh, mom's so pretty. Dad's a good guy, but he's jealous. And it's like, oh, it just ends so much
Yeah.
darker than you expect that to.
Yep. Yep. Um, so I've got a few that I'll throw out at you
Okay.
that weren't on your
Perfect.
list. Uh, Independence Day by Martina McBride.
That is a good one.
It's a very
I,
good one.
that's a sad one. That's a tearjerker one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody's playing at the 4th of July parties. I'm like,
Yeah, no,
wait a minute.
yeah, they do. And then
Wait a minute.
I feel like it's such in the background, like nobody notices. You're like, oh, this kid is getting sent to foster care because her parents killed him. It's
Yes.
dark when you actually listen to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, absolutely. But and again, part of the thing with a murder ballad is it can be told from
Mhm.
different perspectives. Sometimes it's of the person getting murdered, sometimes it's from the
Yes.
person committing the murder, and
Yep.
sometimes it's just somebody that's
Somebody that's
it,
there, like they're
there and involved. Yeah, like
yeah.
the kid in Independence Day.
Yep.
Um, Janie's Got a Gun, Aerosmith.
That is a good one. And so my first focus right now is to go through country ones, and then
Mhm.
I'm going to get through the summer. And then I think towards like the fall, winter, I'm going to do rock and other
Mhm.
genres. So that one's going to be showing up late this year, I
Yeah.
think.
And if you really go back to the whole old school Delta blues
Hmm.
era, all of those songs are either they're singing about Jesus, they're singing about uh, uh, committing adultery, or they're
Yep,
singing about killing somebody.
they are. And
That's it.
sometimes
That's
some
it.
ramblings in there too, sometimes. But yeah, and sometimes
Yeah.
it's all in the same song.
Yes, it's exactly right. Sometimes it's all in the same song. So
Yeah.
you've got a deep, deep well to draw from
Yeah.
if you ever get into the blues side
Yeah,
of
and like
things.
a lot of the blues songs where it's like, "Oh, I killed a man and now I'm sad." I'm like, "Oh, we got a lot of remorse happening now."
Right.
Okay.
Um, Long Black Veil
That's a
is,
good one.
yeah,
One.
Lefty Frizzell song that I
Yeah.
guess Johnny Cash made famous, but I think
Yes.
a lot of people have done that song.
Right.
Uh, and it's basically I was executed, but I didn't do it. But I didn't use my alibi because I was cheating on my wife or cheating on my wife with my best friend's wife. So,
Yeah. So you're like, I'm just gonna go to the chair rather than tell anybody that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I was I've had a couple of guests on the show, musicians that have been on the show before that kind of or get the whole murder ballad thing. And one, I actually recorded a show with uh, Johnny Toms, who's the lead singer for a band called Van Winkle and the Spirits. It's a
Okay.
great country band. Um, and they have a song on their first album called Shine. And it's about the story of a coffin maker
Oh.
who is a serial killer.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's wild. I gotta go listen
Yeah.
to that.
Yeah, and it's very when I had him on the show, we were talking about that song, and he said, "You know what that's about, right?" And I said, "Well, it's a coffin maker." He goes, "Oh, you got to go back and listen to it because he's a serial killer too." I'm like, "What? Wait, how did I miss that?" And then you
Oh,
go back, and it's like, "Oh yeah, he's killing people to drum up business."
keeping himself smart. I mean, a smart man.
And then there's a band called the Cold Stairs,
Yeah.
and the lead singer there and songwriter Chris Tapp. He's been on the show a few times, and I kid him. I said, "Oh, well, I'm listening to your new album," and I had to guess how many songs I would get into
Mhm.
before you killed somebody or somebody killed you. But there are lots of really good ones there. Probably one of my favorite is on their second album. It's a song called John, and he's basically making some guy dig his grave, and then he tells him
Oh,
to dig it double wide, and so he puts John in the grave, and then he go gets his wife who's been cheating with John and puts her in
oh
there
my,
too.
that's dark. I like it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I
Yeah,
no, there's
and
some
like,
good stuff there.
and some of these are so subtle. Like you said, that first one, like you didn't get that it
Right.
was about murder, and I'm like, and that's why I wanted to do. So I do that on my Substack, where I break it down verse by
Hmm.
verse to be like, oh, this is what they're saying, because I think like lyricism is really lost on a lot of people sometimes.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah,
Unless it's just real obvious, and a lot of times
right,
the real obvious lyric in a song, like in uh Independence Day, you
yeah,
listen to Let Freedom Ring. Okay, yeah.
yeah.
Woo!
Oh no, that
Happy
was
4th.
yeah,
No, you missed the point again.
yeah. But
And
like, like you have Johnny Cash and the Cocaine Blues. He's like, I shot my woman down. Okay, thanks for telling us. Like that's very obvious, but so
yeah,
many of these are just not. And
yeah. And one that hadn't really didn't really think about being like this at first, but there's an album by Bob Dylan called Tempest.
oh,
Came out in 2012. The whole album is basically a murder ballad.
oh, I didn't real. I'm not. I'm gonna sound bad when I say I'm not a big Bob Dylan follower.
Yep.
So I'm gonna look that up though.
Yep. And there's a high body count on that album.
So I thought, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, just and I'm a big Dylan fan, but even I didn't really put it all together
Yeah.
until I was thinking about this show and was looking around. Okay, what are some? I know I'm missing something here,
Hmm.
and then
Yeah.
I came across an article on that, and I thought, okay, yeah,
Yeah. I
that
sometimes
gets.
I like to listen to a song, but then after I listen, I want to go back and like Google the lyrics. And once you
Mhm.
read them for yourselves, you're like, oh, I missed a lot of things happening and here when you just look at them in black and white in front of you.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so, other than the three that you named,
Hmm.
is there a murder ballad that you really like, or one that maybe you came across during your research that you really love the backstory to?
So I really like it's a guy named Chris Knight. Are you familiar with him at all?
Mm-mm.
So he's a country guy. He's never made it huge, but he should have. He's got a great voice and he does sing a lot of dark songs. He
Mhm.
has one called Down the River, and the whole song is just a story about how when he was a kid, him and his brother would go like fish the river, put their nets out. But there's like a bully in town named Wilson, and that guy got into it with his brother at the bar. And then when they're out on the river together, that bully kills his brother. So
Mhm.
years later, he's still mad about the loss of his brother. He sees Wilson in his boat and then he goes after him. And it's called Down the River because he really just chases him down the river the entire song until he gets revenge. And it's really good.
So, is there a what is the best cocktail to pair with a murder ballad?
Oh, that's a good one. I don't know because I haven't been pairing cocktails with these.
Mhm.
Hmm. That is a good one. I think you just kind of like get a whiskey neat, like whatever like
Mhm.
whiskey you're into at the moment. Sit back with that, enjoy it. Don't make it something that you have to think about too hard. Just sit back and enjoy it so you can enjoy whatever story you're being told.
Yeah. About 2 pours in,
Yeah,
you're starting to laugh at the murder ballad.
you kind of
Okay, let's just be honest.
yeah. So
When
one
you're
that always
stone cold sober, you're like, "Oh, wow, that's
like
terrible. How
you're
oh, that's tragic."
yeah
And then a couple drinks in, you're like, that's funny. He killed her because she cheated
yeah
on him."
you're like oh. And sometimes you're just like good for her.
You go, girl.
Yeah, no, so one that surprises me is Carrie Underwood has
Mhm,
murder ballads. Like happy, almost pop country Carrie ballad.
mhm,
Carrie Underwood has murder ballads. She has
yep.
two that I know of. And one is Choctaw County Affair, where they're literally in the courtroom being tried for murder. And they're going to get off on it because the DA is crooked, which is fine. And two Black Cadillacs. Husband cheated on her. She meets the mistress. They're both at the funeral together. You can put that together.
That's great. Um, so what's coming up next for you? Either on your podcast, or do you have another book in mind, or what's next for Stephanie?
So I always have different things rattling around where I'm like, I want to do this, I want to do that. And there's only so many hours in our day.
I understand.
I I don't know. So I wanted to do like a whole haunted Indiana book by county. Like I wanted to be
Oh,
like
wow.
92 haunted counties. That is a lot of
That
research.
is a lot. Yeah.
And when I start these things, I'm always like, okay, I'm going to start it now. I want it done by this date. And it's absolutely not happening by the time I set like very like lofty goals where I'm like, started it in March, I can have it done by August. It's not happening. So
Right.
I don't know when that will be done, but I kind of like put a stop on it because I was like, you know what? I have other ideas. I'm like, I love podcasting and I love writing little blogs, but I'm like, what if I
Mhm.
tried to write a fiction book? And I've started like three and I'd get like five chapters in and I would start another one. So I'm like, I really want to sit down this summer and actually finish something. So we'll see.
Well, you could do short stories. That
I
way,
could.
it's 3 chapters and
Yeah,
you're
I'm lucky
done.
them short stories. I'm like, they could have went further, but they
Yeah.
didn't.
Right. And you can kind of weave some cocktails into it. What they
Yeah.
were drinking when they got poisoned.
Yeah, that's a good
There you
one.
go.
Like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, poisoned at a cocktail party. You could do
Oh,
that too. Yeah. See, the
see,
more I
see, you can weave in your book, the zodiac book,
yeah,
and if you knew whose was what sign,
yeah.
and
So
you
I
knew that you could, yeah.
it's funny you say that because it's actually one that I've started and have put on the back burner for at least 2 years now. Because I'm
Hmm.
like, there was a Zodiac killer, which is not what I want to talk about. But I was like,
Hmm.
what if? So every sign like has a different personality. I'm like, what if there was a killer that killed every single sign in the way that they should be killed? Not that people should be killed, but like if it's a water sign, oh, they drowned, it was accidental, or it's a fire sign, oh, their house caught on fire. Like I want to weave that in where this person is so crazy and meticulous in studying people that he kills them per sign
Hmm.
or she kills them per sign. And
Yeah.
it's a lot of thought and it's a lot of like deep dark rabbit holes where I'm like, oh, that's got to stop. So
Yeah.
I've started and stopped that one so many times.
So, a lot of what you do with your podcast and the research you do, it's kind of dark.
It is,
So,
yeah.
what do you do to keep light and happy?
I mean, I have 3 dogs. Those
Yeah.
yeah. The dogs help. I am a big fan of really stupid TV. I do like reality TV. I like adult cartoons. Like I like Archer, and I will rewatch The
Mhm.
Simpsons and Family Guy all the time. Um, yeah, I really watch a lot of stupid TV.
Okay. Well, that'll do it, or it'll drive you to kill somebody.
Yeah,
One
either
one
way.
of the two. Could go either way. Could
So I
go
mean,
either
like you
way.
can't be like looking up ghost stories and murder stories and be like, oh, I want to watch only Lifetime movies that people get killed in. Like it's too much sometimes, even
Yeah.
for. So I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, no, I'm gonna watch something real dumb and something real happy that's gonna make me laugh. So I
Yeah.
like comedy too. So I just
Yeah.
throw something
Yeah,
funny on.
see, it's not really my wife's personality at all to be angry or violent, but
Yeah.
she'll sit down and she'll watch these snap murder shows, just boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom, and I don't know if I need to be worried,
Yeah.
uh,
Is she taking
or what.
notes? Are there notes anywhere?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I should be concerned about that or not.
Yeah.
So if something happens to me, promise me that you'll find Chris Knight or Reba or somebody and write a murder
We'll at
ballad.
least memorialize you with a good murder ballad.
Yes,
Yeah,
please, please.
that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, because she always said that she would kill me before she'd ever divorce me. So,
I think, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
most women feel that way. Where I'm like, you know what? He's like, you would never divorce me. You think it's too inconvenient. I'm like, yeah, I'm not even going to do the paperwork to change my name. Why would I file divorce papers?
oh no, no, yeah, I'm kidding, of course, unless I end up dead, and then
Unless you're not.
unless I'm not. No. No, she tolerates me doing recording shows like this, and
Yeah,
so
yeah.
uh,
And you're doing a lot. You're doing a lot of great things too. Like if you're not recording, you're always out finding new music. Yeah, you're busy. You're a busy guy too, and she
yeah,
seems really supportive, and that's awesome.
she's remarkably supportive.
Yeah.
Couldn't ask for anything better. But what else, Stephanie? What else you got going on?
So this year is just busy like with personal travel and stuff. So I
Hmm.
think creativity wise, like just for my own mental health, I gotta be like, okay, I'm gonna do the Substack, I'm gonna do the blog, I'm gonna do the podcast.
Hmm.
And then I have to say, you know what, enough's enough because it's fun, but it's also you can't just work 24/7. You
Yeah.
have to be like, all right, when I turn it off, I'm gonna actually just sit on my deck to set on my deck. I'm gonna go on this trip, not do a ghost tour. I'm just gonna enjoy this to be a
Hmm.
person and enjoy vacation. So you gotta turn it off at some point
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
No, I get that because a lot of the music that I listen to
Hmm.
is preparation for a show.
Yeah, you go to a concert, prep work, right? Like
Right.
it's still work.
Well, eh,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, concerts
yeah,
are if I'm going to a show, it's just have fun. But a lot of times
right.
it becomes, hey, introduce myself to the band after the show, and
Exactly.
3
Yeah.
weeks later they're on it,
Yeah, and
and
I'm bad about like, hey, we're gonna be in this city. Are there any ghost tours? Like, I'll be on Eventbrite so quick, being like,
yeah,
can you squeeze those in?
yeah. Yeah. But I end up a lot of just the time that I would spend just casually listening to music, I
Yeah,
spend listening to the bands that are coming up on the show, which are great. I mean, I'm not going to book
right.
somebody on the show
That
that
you don't
I
like.
don't like.
Yeah.
That I'm just not going to do that. That's no fun. And then try to pretend like, hey, your song's great. No,
You know,
no,
yeah, you don't, you
nobody's
want
going to buy that.
genuine, like you want to talk to the people you like listening to. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. But but there'll be times that, man, I've really got this song in my head and I want to listen to it, and
Hmm.
but I've got to get ready for the show that I'm recording in 2 days too. So,
Yeah.
so I mean, there's a little.
Yeah.
It's just
So
a lot of hard work,
I
Stephanie. I
get
just don't know what I'm going to
really
do.
is, but I get that where it starts to be a chore where you're like, this is what I'm in the mood for, but I
Mhm,
know I have to do this so I can write this or I can record this.
mhm.
And then sometimes it does feel like a chore sometimes, but it's all self-imposed. So I try not
Right.
to be like, I don't even want to do
Oh,
this. And
no,
then it
I'm not
so
gonna complain.
yeah.
I'm not gonna complain one bit, because I've been able to meet so many really,
Mhm.
really cool people that are very kind with their time, and they're very gracious, and
Yes.
I no, there's none of that I regret or would take back for a second. But there is work that goes into it, and you do a ton of research.
I do.
Um,
Yeah. And I attribute part of that to like Chris's job. Like he's gone a lot. So I'm like, oh, like I'm here alone a lot. Like I'm already sitting on my couch. I might as well learn something and share it with the world. So
yeah,
that's kind of what I
yeah,
do.
yeah. No, that's great. But I enjoy your show,
Thank you.
um, and I, I think you do a fun job with it. I like the way you tie in the ghost story or the celebrity death story
Yeah.
with a cocktail, and I think you've got a whole lot of really cool topics out there on the murder ballad side too.
Yeah,
So
thank you. I appreciate that. And those are going to keep, I've thought about doing these since 2019. I just
yep,
didn't know how to go about it. Where I was like, nobody wants me to do a podcast on murder ballads because I will try to sing them and nobody wants, you don't want me to sing. That's not going to be great for anybody. So, and then I found Substack on accident because I didn't want to do a website. I didn't want to do a whole blog
right,
situation. It's just too much. But Substack's great. You can post when you want to post. It's free. Or when you get enough subscribers, you don't even need a number. You can just be like, hey, this level is paid. It's a lot like Patreon if you have that, where
right.
you can do paid levels if you want to. And I'm like, yeah, I think Substack is something I can grow. And it's just a nice space to be in. I like that
Cool.
little spot.
Yeah. So tell everybody again where they can find all of your fantastic work.
Yeah, the easiest place, check out Highly Spirited Podcast on Instagram. You can check out my personal page too, McNew ABV. I really just post a lot of dumb memes in my stories every day. But Highly Spirited Podcast is where I do all my serious stuff. There's a little link tree. You can find
Mhm.
literally the books, the podcast, the Substack. You can find everything there.
Yep. Yep. The Linktree thing is great. I
Yeah.
was trying to find um, uh, photos for your books and clicked the Linktree, and it took me right to Amazon. And so there you
Yeah,
go.
because for some reason, Amazon, if I type in the name of one of my books, they never come up. And I
Right.
don't, Amazon hates me. I don't know why. Follow the link, it's going to get you there.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's what I did first. Is I searched your name, I searched your book
Yeah.
name,
Like,
your
I don't
name and your book name,
know who
and
I need to pay to get better in their algorithm, but it's not happening right now.
Bezos just wants more money. That's all.
Apparently.
That's all.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, be sure to check out Stephanie's podcast on Spotify, preferred site, but you can also find her on
Yep.
Apple.
Apple,
Um,
anywhere you get one. I think I share the link on my socials every Friday. I think my mom just follows that link to wherever it takes you. You can do that too. Because she listens and I know she doesn't have any of
yeah,
these apps. So,
follow Stephanie's mom,
yeah.
and
Oh my
she'll guide your way.
god. Oh god.
She'll guide your way. Um, as for our show, we are on YouTube. So if you're watching us right now, you can please hit that subscribe button. We would love for you to follow along with us there. We are also on your favorite podcast platform, as long as it's Apple, Spotify, or Google. We have a Facebook page where we post all of our shows, including this one. We have a Facebook group where we will post what murder ballad I'm listening to, or you may be listening to, and what you may be drinking while you're listening to it. It's just a fun way to kick some things around, and maybe you'll find something new that you haven't had before, either on the whiskey side or the music side, and just join in the fun. So we'd appreciate it if you would. Stephanie, this has been fun catching up with you.
Yes, thank you for having me. I love everything you're doing over here too. It's a great show. I appreciate being here.
Thank you. We need to get together sometime when you're back in Louisville.
Yes, we do.
It's been too long.
I'll find some time. It has, yeah. I'll find some time to get back down there soon. So
awesome. Well, until next time, on behalf of Stephanie and myself, thank you all for watching, and cheers, love, and free bird. Good night.
Night, guys.